Ashley. Hello, Ashley.
Hi, I'm
How are
here.
you? So Ashley, we're basically running this the way that we did last time. So
hmm
we're gonna do a cursory overview, and then we're gonna start digging down. So because you and I went over it before, this may be a little bit easy for you, and so you're welcome to just jump in. Okay. So if you know things from the last session, just jump in. Okay. And then if you get kind of taking it over, then I'll stop you and let Addison talk. Okay. Is that cool? Addison, you cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now we're talking about cellulitis. So Addison and I were just having a discussion that cellulitis is bacterial, viral, fungal, protozoa, right? It's that stuff. That stuff's getting in the skin and it's causing that inflammation and infection to happen. So this one's for Ashley. So Ashley, what is contact dermatitis and what made it different?
It was a level 4, was it a immunity? I forgot what it was
Hypersensitivity.
called. Hypersensitivity.
Hypersensitivity. So how is that different? So Ashley, how is that different than cellulitis?
Cellulitis is caused by staph and strep,
Yep.
and the other one's caused by the hypersensitivity.
So, Ashley, can you explain to Addison what you just said to me and help her to understand this?
Yeah, so we're just trying to differentiate cellulitis and what's the other one? Dermatitis or something.
Yeah, contact dermatitis.
So they kind of have the same
There's Paula. Keep
symptoms or
going.
whatever.
Hi guys.
Hello. So we differentiated it by cellulitis is caused by strep and staph infection, and then dermatitis is that level 4. I can never remember the word.
Hypersensitivity.
Hypersensitivity from what we learned a long time ago, acid.
Yeah,
And
acid
that,
154, right?
yeah, and that's the
Okay.
one that takes a while after the exposure to start.
So Addison, so remember D4 of acid 1234? What was D4 in acid 1234 of hypersensitivity?
Delayed.
So yeah, so contact dermatitis starts as a delayed 4 hypersensitivity response. Now, Ashley, what can this type 4 develop into?
Type 1.
Yeah, so it can jump. It can jump from being a type 4 hypersensitivity, and it can very quickly become untreated and it's not taken care of, and then it jumps to a type 1 anaphylactic response. And that's a lot more serious than delayed response, right? No one dies of poison ivy, you know what I mean? But people die of anaphylaxis.
Wasn't she saying that the second exposure causes type 1? Like if you
Yeah.
get stung by a bee
Yep.
and it
So a
won't
lot
be a
of
big deal, but if you do again, then it turns into anaphylaxis.
Yeah, so a lot of times people will get stung by a bee the first time and have no response, right? But for whatever reason, their genome or whatever that introduces that pathogen and those histamines and whatnot to their system. And so then, yes, it's the second time and the third time they have that hyper response. Histamines are released. They get all the vasoconstriction and they get the vasodilation, bronchial constriction, and that's what causes them to go in that anaphylactic reaction. It's very dangerous. So yes, it's usually so people don't usually get hay fever the first time they're exposed to grass, right? It's over multiple exposures to grass that they start to develop that runny nose, burning eyes, right? So that's yeah. And so the same thing here. You're exactly right. So Addison, will you do me a favor? Will you do a teach back of the two infections, cellulitis and contact dermatitis, with what you remember those to be for the rest of us?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. So we kind of went in more depth about contact dermatitis.
Yes. Why do we go into more depth?
Because it's a harder topic to understand.
Yeah, there's just more going on with that topic, right? It's
Yeah.
type 4 to type 1. Cellulitis is just a straight up bacterial infection, right? And that's
Yeah.
about as exciting as a toothache, right? Like all the itises that we've seen haven't been as much fun as like, ARDS and SIDS and anal reflux and all that. Those are all the fun topics. It's all the itises that are just stupid. Is okay, yeah, syphilis, wonderful, really cool. But it's like trick that's the cool one. It's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so go.
So the contact dermatitis, it's basically just like a delayed. It was like a type. You said type 4 hypersensitivity.
Yes.
Which comes on later, but then it can also be seen as like a type 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll start to develop into a type 1. And Ashley made a good comment that over multiple exposures, that type 1 can transition to a type 1. Or, I mean, type 4 can transition, type 4 can transition to a type 1.
Okay.
That's it. You got it. Okay. Hala, we'll get you on the next one. So, Hala, you're here now. Awesome. So, tell us everything that you can remember about pressure ulcers.
So, pressure ulcer comes in different stages. It goes anywhere from stage 1 to stage 4, and there is one that is unstageable. Basically, you can look at it, but you can see a lot.
Hold on, I'm going to mute myself. Keep going. I'm muting myself so I can answer the phone.
Okay. So basically, on stage 1 through stage 4, you see things, but on unstageable, you see a lot, but you can't say a lot about it. Stage 1, skin is red, but it's unblanchable. So when you press against the skin, it doesn't blanch. And that's when you know that's a stage 1 pressure ulcer. Usually when you sleep a little longer on your side and then your skin get red, if you press it, it blanches. But when it's unblanchable, means that's a stage 1. Stage 2, basically the epidermis is removed. That's a stage 2. So you're seeing flesh. And it involves pain because the nerve endings are present. They're exposed. And when you touch the patient, you want to clean the patient before you apply the wound dressing. You have to give them painkiller because they're in pain. And stage 3, and the whole dermis and the whole part of the whole epidermis and part of dermis is gone. And so you're going all the way to fat in that case. And then it has undermining. So if you get a Q-tip and you go around it, under the skin is emptied for about a couple of millimeter. And they call that stage 3. Stage 4 goes all the way down to fascia, bone, and tendons. And so you see white stuff. And that is when you use a Q-tip, it can go undermining. And if you search a little, it can go tunneling. On an unstageable is when skin is covered with things like eschar or eschar. And that is basically a dead tissue. It's a blackened dead tissue that is definitely a medium for all sorts of bacteria grow, bacteria, fungus, virus grow underneath and turn into a big time bomb. And so what they do, sometimes they doctor debris them, or sometimes in a long-term setting, we use medication that eats away the eschar before we put medication over it and heal the wound. Basically discover how far it's gone down. Then after you remove the eschar, you remove all the slough then you can stage it. So unstageable wound presents itself with eschar and slough, and it comes in different degree. You can see anything from stage 1 all the way to stage 4, and things that you cannot see what's happening behind it. Can I fill in more?
Yeah, keep going.
And what else? Oh, and then if with a stage 3 and stage 4, we usually pack wounds. We can go wet to dry. Wet to dry is usually with saline. Sometimes you can put feet of gauze into the packing the wound, and sometimes just a long strip and just put it into the wound. And what that packing does, usually wet to dry, the salt sort of what do we do when we salt meat? You're trying to preserve it. So what we do, we preserve the healthy tissue with saline, salt, and then the rest of them that are not good usually separate themselves from the healthy tissue, because the healthy tissue just kind of pushes away the nasty old dead tissue. And in the process of when you're trying to take the packing out, all those dead slough and debris comes out, and then you start seeing the granulated tissue, which is a perfect area for the wound to come together. Would it ever go back to what it looked like before? No, we're just gonna end up with a scar, not a scar, with a scar when it comes together. And I think that's about it.
Okay, so Ashley, we talked before about the two kinds of unrelieved pressure is the big one that we talk about during pressure ulcers because it's in the name. What is the other force that's in play that can cause pressure sores to start?
Diabetes.
No, not risk factors. A force. It's a force on the body that causes pressure sores to happen.
Shearing?
The what? Yep, shearing forces, right? So what's a shearing force?
I don't really understand.
Let me tell you what's happening.
It's sandpaper. It's sandpaper. The cotton in the sheets, when you rub someone's skin across it, it can rip the skin off. So it's a shearing force because it's rubbing along it, right? It's like road rash.
Okay.
That's
usually is not, but because the patient, when they're in a bedridden situation, our skin is the toughest part of our body, but it's also the weakest of our body when we get sick. It's the first thing that goes. Why? Because malnutrition, lack of protein, albumin weakens the skin. Our skin is a combination of 4 or 5 different stratas. So when you pull it, those stratas are going to try to separate from each other. So if you don't tactically using the skills to pull the patient up, basically the friction causes those stratas separate from each other. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's when they say shearing is going to destroy the skin and create pressure ulcer. And when you expose the stratum basale, which is where all the good stuff, the nerve endings, the blood supply and stuff get exposed, then you got yourself a nice, juicy pressure ulcer.
Yeah, bed sore. Awesome. Okay, they beat the crap out of that. So can anybody, without looking at their dang notes, tell me any of the risk factors for this? Don't cheat. Go ahead, Ashley.
Diabetes.
Addison, do you have any of the risk factors for this? For God's sake, they're exactly the same as the ones we talked about for all skin injuries. Cancer, yeah. Actually, cancer's not one of them on the main list. Hold on, think again. I think I got some bad chicken. I think I'm gonna die. Who says that?
What?
Old people. Age is a factor.
Oh yeah.
What are you talking?
what else is
you were
it?
talking
No.
about you ate old chicken, you're gonna die, and then you're saying old people. What are you talking about?
Okay, when you're around old people, they say funny stuff, right? So listen to my sound of my voice. I think I ate some bad chicken. I think I'm gonna die. Like that's an old
Come on.
that's an
All
old
right,
thing to say.
let me tell you what's happening here because I do wonder. So, things that causes one get pressure ulcer is that when they become bedridden. When you're bedridden and you
What
start
do they call that? Don't say bedridden. Bedridden is not what they say in the notes. What is that called? Because people not in a bed can get pressure ulcers, can't they?
yeah, when
People
they
in wheelchairs can get them.
yeah, when you are pressing against your bony prominence, you
Okay,
get
so it's
so
called
your
limited
bony
mobility.
prominence. Hold on.
I
Your
still like
bony
you.
Your bony prominence are in back of your head. They're your scapulas, right?
Scapula.
And then there your there's your coccyx and your ischial tuberosity, your heel. Those are the one that you press to hold your balance. And if you're sitting on a wheelchair for a very long time and you're not padded or you have not been repositioned, same thing. If you're in a bed and you haven't been repositioned every 2 hours, or they haven't been applied sheepskin or pillows, things that pad you so you don't press so hard to hold yourself. And as people get older, they tend to get a little scared. They're afraid to fall. So what they do, they dig themselves into the bed or they dig themselves into the wheelchair. And that's when you start cut the circulation and people basically get pressure ulcer.
Okay, what are the risk factors again? We got some risk factors.
And poor malnutrition when you're not eating.
Yep, malnutrition is one of them. Yep, that's one of them. What's another one?
Dehydration.
Well, yeah, malnutrition. Nutritional status is all that. That includes water and food. So what's another one? Ashley said diabetes. That's one of them. What's another one?
Oh, and poor circulation.
Smoking.
Smoking is a vasoconstrictor, so that's circulation based. What's another circulation based thing?
Neuropathy. Poor circulation.
So smoking, nutritional status, diabetes, limited mobility. Okay. What about moisture next to the skin? What do we call that?
Oh, maceration.
Yeah, maceration. That's one of them that's going to predispose people for this. Okay. The last one is steroid use. Steroids are anti-inflammatories and they're anti-immune steroids. Those cause this to be aggravated or to cause it to happen. Okay. And the steroid specifically they talked about in the notes is called prednisone. Okay. Moving right along. Burns. Who knows anything about the burns?
Well, it has the 3 different degrees, right? The first degree, second degree, and third degree. First degree, the epidermis is red, burnt. It's painful because the nerve endings are present. And second degree is redness as well, blisters as well as redness. So it presents itself with first and second degree. And then that first 2 could be either anywhere from sunburn to a steam of the kettle, hot water. You can get that. And third degree is when you've scorched the skin and you've gone all the way down to, again, stratum basale. And there are parts that are painful that presents itself as a first degree and second degree. But the part that all the epidermis and dermis is gone and there is no pain. Is it painful? Absolutely, because of the first and second degree part.
Yeah, and the periphery, there's a first and second degree burn in the periphery around the third degree burn. Okay, so Addison, I have a question for you.
Okay.
You ready? Ashley, you cannot answer this question because you already know the answer. And neither can you, Hala, if you know the answer. Okay, so a 16-year-old young man who's been at the beach all day comes in and has a first-degree sunburn, over 32% of his body. Is that a medical emergency? Yes or no?
No.
Yes, it is.
Why?
Any category of burn over 28% or more is considered an absolute medical emergency. Ashley, can you answer why?
Because it's over 30%.
Okay,
Right.
not just that it's over 30%, physiology-wise, and I'm going to Ashley answer because I know she knows the answer. Ashley, what's going on? Why is that such a big emergency, even if it's first degree?
Because it causes a major fluid imbalance in your body.
Thank you. That's why, Addison. That's why it's such a big deal, because even first degree burns cause instability in the vascular of your body, and it causes fluid to move from your vessels to the tissues. And when that happens, you're going to get a decreased blood pressure. You're going to have fluid loss, dehydration. People can die from a first degree burn that's larger than 30% of their body. They can actually die from it. So that's kind of a trick question. You'd think, oh, first degree burn, that's not a big deal, even if it's a big one. It's a big deal, and they need to be getting care. Was that a good question to ask?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's because of a systemic response to burns. Okay. Now, can you get a 30-degree burn from acid? Do you have to get it from the sun?
No.
Okay, any kind of burn over 28% is a medical emergency. Now, another question. Okay, you guys ready for another question? Anybody can answer this. Okay. A guy comes in from his work. He works at the Thiokol Corporation, and they make rocket engines. They had a huge, massive explosion of rocket fuel, and they bring a patient in who's unconscious, who has no physical burns over their body. What's the biggest concern that you're going to have for that person?
It's the airway, because he has inhaled that heated fumes.
Thank you. It is airway based because that person has been exposed to very, very hot gases. Even if their body doesn't say it, they may have been in an environment where their outer dermal layer and clothing protect them from the burns, but their airway was not protected. And so they could have massive burns on their throat and lungs, which is going to make it so they cannot breathe. So that is definitely also a medical emergency. Okay. Were those good questions for burns of the mouth and volume, like how big they are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we still good? Okay,
Yes,
so now it is now 9:30. So if you guys want to go back and dig into this, we can start to dig down to a little bit more detail. Are there any questions so far?
No, did you guys start at 9?
We started at 9:30.
Oh, okay. Because you said it's 9.
Yeah, but no, I'm sorry. Ashley and I we did a 6 o'clock session earlier, and and so she and I got through this and answered a lot of this.
Oh, good.
So she's really spun up on it.
I was at the library trying to take my muscle test.
Okay, well, you're good. Yeah, you did good, by the way. Oh, by the way, just for the sake of everyone's announcement, Hala got a 93% on the Unit 12 exam.
Wow.
I still need another one.
Hala.
Well, I couldn't do it without you guys, honestly. Credit is to all of you.
Okay, hold on. Let's go back here.
It's a team success.
It is definitely a team effort. Okay, so if everybody will go to page 6 on the notes, if everybody will go to page 6, go down to the very bottom part. Let's go through the circulation problems that are created due to burns. This is going to talk a lot about the fluid imbalance. So, Addison, this is where we're going to really dig down to the fluid imbalance. Okay?
Okay.
So, do you want to start by reading the hypovolemia? And who knows what hypovolemia actually is by name? What's hypovolemia?
Hypovolemia, when you don't have enough volume, but due to
volume of what? Volume of what?
Of blood. Blood.
Volume of blood. Excellent. Good. So that's what's going on with that. And okay. So let's go through. So Addison, you want to read hypovolemia?
Yeah. It's
go for it.
Fluid resuscitation.
So yeah, fluid.
Resuscitation
Yep.
is the highest priority after airway/breathing.
Okay, keep going. There's a little bit more there.
Capillary permeability. Third, spacing of fluid through the body, and massive edema.
Okay, so can you do a brief back in your own words what that just said?
Okay, let me pull it up. I took out my contacts, so I'm like trying to read it really close to my face.
So you totally came unprepared to study group?
No,
What the heck?
my eyes hurt.
I'm teasing you, and you already
I
know
know.
that. So I'm totally teasing you.
So which page is that?
That's page 6 on the very bottom of the page. We're going through hypovolemia. We're going through the circulation problems due with burns. Oh, there's Zakia. It came up. It works, Zakia. Hey, everybody, say hello to Zakia.
Hi, Zakia.
So, Zakia, so what we've done, so you know kind of where we're at and what we've done, we basically did a quick overview of all the major topics in Unit 13, and now we're digging down. There were some questions about some of the circulation and the volume, the movement of fluid issues with burns, what's going on with burns and where the fluid's going, because we all love that. I mean, that's like our favorite thing in this class is knowing where the hell the water's going. So we're digging down through the circulation and know where all the fluid's going in burns and why that's such a big deal.
Okay.
So Addison started with hypovolemia, and now she's going to do a brief back in her own words what that bullet point means.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, I don't know how to say this in my own words.
Well, just give it your best shot. We'll all forgive you.
Okay, how about you do it then?
No, go for it. You're doing great. Keep going. You're doing fine.
No.
Come on, go.
No, don't be shy, hon. You know what? There is no wrong answers. And the only way you can do it is to try it. And as I said, there's no wrong answer. They're just need to be altered.
Okay.
So what's fluid resuscitation? Addison, what's fluid resuscitation?
They don't want, to give them too much fluid?
No, we want to give them fluid. That's what so there's two ways that we can do that. How can we give people fluids? There's two ways.
Through, obviously drinking it, but then also through an IV.
Hallelujah. Good job. Perfect. Excellent. What are you talking about? You can't. You totally can do this. You're amazing. Okay, keep going. So fluid resuscitation is going on. That's our number one priority behind airway and breathing. And then what's the next piece say? What's capillary permeability talking about? What the hell is that?
Well,
just the option.
So is this saying that the capillary permeability is better or worse?
wouldn't it be better?
Well, no, you burned it. You burned the tissue. So are they losing fluid uncontrollably, aka they're dehydrated, and that's why they're pumping fluids into them? Or are they retaining fluids in their vessels, having normal cellular movement of fluids and water due to sodium and what's going on?
Well, they're burned, so their vessels could be damaged.
Yeah, oh, they're going to be damaged. And so water is freely leaking out, and plasma proteins and stuff are freely leaking out of the vessel now. That's what's happening. So we're giving them IVs and pumping fluids into them. And if they can drink, we're drinking water to get those fluids back into them. Okay?
Okay.
Are we down?
Yep.
Okay. And then, oh, by the way, what's the last thing that it says right there? The very last thing.
Massive edema.
So what's going on with massive? Why do we have massive edema going on?
Because their fluids are basically not, they're just leaking out.
Yeah.
They cannot be functioning right.
Okay. Who's next? Who wants to do the next one? Who wants to do plasma
Well,
proteins?
remember what causes the edema, because when a body get burnt or any stress, what happened to our vessels? They become permeable, and water in fluid, instead of staying in our vascular system, they're going to go into interstitial, right?
Yes.
Or third spacing. That's what causes so instead of water stay in the vascular system, it goes into the wrong places. And third spacing is one of those. That's when the person's picture on the overhead was showing this cute little Asian, or you know, I don't know what was the nationality. It blew up like a balloon, and it wasn't his face that blew, burned. It was somewhere else. It was his both hands, right?
Yeah.
But the fluid went into his somewhere else, which is the third spacing somewhere.
Yeah, I thought that that's awkward, but even though that tissue swell is like a healthy tissue, it's just like a water being like all the fluid being locked. Like for me and logically, the water should be in the place that it burned because the vessel is not covered. There is no skin. But
well,
again,
because
that
go ahead.
sorry. Hello.
Hello, who's here?
Yeah.
Keep going, Hala. Or
No,
Zakia.
Zakia got disconnected, so we had like a voice contact. Go ahead, Zakia.
Yeah. So the only thing that is make me like not understand, but like keep in my mind when you have burns is the first place will be affected is the lungs. That's why that guy is like the fluid has been in their face. Like why it's not in the place of the burn, you know?
Okay, so I think, and let me I'm throwing this out to everybody, but let me answer this question and see if I can answer this and help you guys understand. So absolutely, at the site of the burn, you are going to have edema. Okay, and if you saw all the burn pictures that we saw today, was there swelling at the site of the burn?
Oh yeah.
There was swelling at every side of the burn, and what's happening is that at the site of the burn, you're having swelling. Well, when that tissue can no longer support any more fluid, two things are going to happen. Either that tissue is going to rupture and release the fluid as pus and water, or it's going to be maintained, the structure of the tissue is maintained, and it starts to leak out into other open third space places that it can go because it's now released. It's no longer in the blood. Does that make sense? And then sometimes we actually cut the tissue to open it up to allow that tissue to expand to keep them from having airway problems. So like that guy today, they showed all that edema on his lungs, and the doctor made those 3 cuts around the outside of his rib cage to release the edema so that patient could breathe, because it was less invasive and less damaging to physically cut his chest open and to relieve all that fluid than it was for the edema to get so severe he couldn't breathe anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that an agreement? That makes sense, and we're all on board with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
Yep.
All say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So do we do plasma proteins?
I would do it.
Okay, go for it, Zakia. And then just read it out loud and then explain it in your own words, and then we'll keep moving.
Okay, so protein is able to escape from blood vessels due to increased permeability, so loss of oncotic pressure in veins, so fluid is not pulled out of the tissue. So I know that the loss of protein that we lost, so it's like is the oncotic pressure. So is those protein are the ones who've been maintaining the osmolarity, like the fluid in and out of the tissue from the vascular space to the interstitial space. So if we lost that, then we don't have what they call that molecules to really retain the fluid in.
Where are the plasma proteins normally at in undamaged tissue?
Circulation.
They're in the vasculature, right? They're in the blood.
Yeah.
So when those blood vessels are damaged from burns, where do those go?
They will be loose. Like they yeah.
Anywhere.
They are lost with the fluid as edema into the tissues, right? So now where are those plasma proteins? They're in the tissues now. So where are they drawing the water?
To the tissues.
they're drawing the water to the tissues, and that's increasing edema to the tissues. And oh, by the way, now our blood chemistry's blown off. And so now as that blood moves downstream, its plasma proteins are gone to undamaged areas. And so now you're going to lose more water to other areas that are not damaged because the plasma protein contents are gone. They're lost in the burned area. So as you were saying, Sakia, earlier, you were asking, why are they having it in other areas of the body that have nothing to do with the burned area? That's why. Because they've lost those plasma proteins in their body, and they can no longer. There it is.
That's why we give hypertonic solutions to burns people, because they are dehydrated.
We don't give them hypertonic or hypotonic. What do we give them?
Hypertonic. That's what you said.
We give them hypertonic, and not only do we give them hypertonic, what kind of hypertonic fluid are we going to want to give them?
Oh, 3% and above.
No, we're not going to give them sodium. We're going to give them albumin as the hypertonic solution.
Oh,
why?
Okay.
Why would we give them albumin?
Because it's protein.
It's protein based, and we've lost the proteins. We haven't lost the salt component of our blood. What have we lost?
The protein component.
So here we go. Test question. Someone has third-degree burns in their arms. What kind of hypertonic solution are we going to give them, and why? What kind of hypertonic solution are you going to give them? Well, I'm going to give them 3% normal saline. Wrong. What are you going to give them?
Albumin.
We're going to give them hypertonic solutions of albumin because we've lost plasma proteins, which serves two functions. It increases the plasma protein in the blood, and it also acts as hypertonic to pull fluid back in. So you get two cures for the price of one.
Okay, got it.
Doesn't that feel? It just feels so good.
Yeah.
Sorry. Doesn't that feel good to understand why we don't just give normal saline as hypertonic?
Yep.
There's more than one thing that we can give them, and that's why we give them albumin, is because especially in burns, they've lost that plasma protein content.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how good did that feel to just fit? Oh, okay, I'm done. Sorry, everybody, I'm excited.
Take the tachycardia.
Okay, take the tachycardia.
Yep.
So tachycardia develops due to hypovolemia. Okay, so what was hypovolemia again?
Low blood volume.
Low blood volume. So is my blood pressure going to be high or low?
Low.
It's going to go low because of the lack of volume.
So here is a review from today's material, or not from today's, but from last test. We had Cushing's triad and we had shock, right? So if I'm in tachycardia and my blood pressure's low, am I in shock or am I doing Cushing's triad?
What? One more time?
So this is a review from the last exam 4. Cushing's triad was in exam 4, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And what was the system that countered Cushing's triad that was exactly opposite to it? Shock. So if they're in tachycardia and because of hypovolemia, which is going to cause low blood pressure, this person's headed where? Someone who's been burned is headed where?
To shock.
They're in shock. They're going to have low blood pressure, tachycardia, and elevated respirations. They are headed to hypovolemic shock. That's where they're going. And we need to intervene to stop that. And then on the other side, so what would Cushing's triangle be as a review?
Will be
hypervolemia.
Hypertension, elevated blood pressure, which is going to cause a reduced heart rate, which is called bradycardia. And then we're going to have reduced respirations.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's a review and a review and a review. How exciting was that? Aren't you ladies so excited? Isn't that exciting?
I have an announcement to make.
Yes.
Because this dude got accepted in the nursing program.
Yeah, I got my thing back today.
Oh, sweet.
So I can start in spring. Yay, I'm so excited.
Wait.
I don't want to leave all you guys behind. I want all of you to come with me.
Wait.
Well,
Go to class on
the nursing
Thursday.
program say don't lose hope. They're behind. They're still sending emails.
Yeah, they're still sending emails. Okay, who's got hemoconcentration? Addison, do you want to? Oh, Ashley, have you done one?
No, but I don't get hemoconcentration.
Well, read it out loud and we'll help you. Just read it out loud, try to figure it out, and then we'll help you if you don't get it, okay?
Okay. So caused by fluid loss, high HCT, concentrated red blood cells, viscous blood clots. So it sounds like the blood is really concentrated because of it's lost
Okay,
the water
I'm gonna put this out to the
component.
group. Does that sound like Ashley knows what the hell's going on?
Uh-huh.
That sounds like a pretty good explanation to me, Ashley. I think you do know what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
Because you're amazing.
Now that I talked it out.
There's a method to the madness, right? There's absolutely a method to the madness.
Yes.
Okay, who wants to take Dick? I mean DIC. Who's taking
Well,
DIC?
back to the hemo concentration, and the reason blood get thick is not because you lost blood, because albumin shifted somewhere else. The water followed. There left all the blood components. That's why the blood.
So what's still there? What's still left then? If the proteins have left and the water's left, what's still left?
All the components, your hematocrit, your red blood cells. That's why your blood is viscous.
Yep, so red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are still present in the vasculature because those haven't been lost, right? They're just more hyperosmolar or more concentrated, which is a review of SAIDH and DI, right? We talked about all this stuff in SAIDH and DI. The point that I'm making with a lot of these review things I'm throwing at you ladies is this is not new. Through the course of this semester, we've seen all this stuff for 2 and 3 times now. And so I'm trying to draw it back to things that you already know and remember and recognize so that this doesn't seem so daunting. Okay, you guys have got this. And this is stuff that we've seen before. And when you start to realize, you'd like realize, man, nurses aren't that smart. They just memorize a lot of the same stuff. When it's the same stuff, they just associate it as if they already know. Okay, so what's DIC? Anybody want to take DIC? That's a review. DIC is definitely a review.
Disseminated in intravascular coagulation is basically when your body is kind of confused, it's going to bleed as well as clotting at the same time. And so its body is kind of into shock because of the burn, and it's not that start bleeding and at the same time sending a lot of clotting factor and to stop the bleeding. Too many thrombocytes is going to congregate in one place and start creating this plug that's called blood clot, and it's going to plug the veins, and that's when shit hit the fan.
So yeah, you got a double whammy, right? You got bleeding with what? You got clotting. Bleeding with clotting all at the same time. Again, so anytime we see 2 systems that don't normally exist together like that, it's the widowmaker, if that makes sense. So we got 2 systems that should not be functioning at the same time. You shouldn't have clotting with bleeding. So when you do, it's a double whammy on your hematocrit. It's a double whammy on your blood system. And that's why it's so dangerous and why DIC keeps coming back to haunt us. Dude, DIC is no joke, man. That's the real deal. Okay, who wants to take end-stage organ failure? Addison, do you want to take that one?
Sure.
Okay, hit that one.
Caused by hypoperfusion of the vital organs.
Okay, in your own words, what's going on there?
Basically, it's just like a lack of blood flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So when you have a lack of blood flow to an organ, what happens to it?
Dies.
Yeah, it dies, right? So it loses oxygen. You get cytotoxic release of the internal components, which is necrosis. And then what do I always call that when that happens? What do I call that? The tsunami wave of death, right? As one cell dies.
I thought you were going to say anal wink.
No, it's not anal wink. Anal wink is something else. So it's the tsunami wave of death. So can you explain the tsunami wave of death to everybody?
When the cell dies and releases component and kill the next cell, and that one releases.
And then the next, and then the next.
And that's the tsunami wave of death. Yeah. And like 5 years from now, when we're all working at the hospital together, and I hear one of you say, the tsunami wave of death, we'll all laugh, right? as Addison steps out of the surgical ward with her scalpel in her hand, saying, "Look at my cool knife. I got to cut some people today." And Zakia will still look at me strangely when I say anal wink.
Why you
She'll
keep
be
my face on there?
Okay, you freaking are always embarrassed whenever I say that. It makes me laugh. Okay,
Because
ladies,
some of us grew up in a Muslim country. We're polite.
I know us Western Americans, man, we're like totally, we'll just say anything.
You guys have no social filter.
That's true.
You know, Chris. You have some glitch in there. You're not a full Mormon too. I will give you that.
Okay, touche. I'm horrible.
You are.
What would Jesus say? Jesus would check the anal wink and look for the tsunami wave of death.
Don't
Okay,
worry. He can
ladies,
hear you from away. Like
it is 10:21, which gives us 9 minutes. So I've got the lecture overview. Okay, so we're going to do one-liners as quickly as we can. We are going to work through every single one of these sections as quickly as possible and see if we can one-liner these. So risk factors, we're going to just walk away from that. I don't care about that right now. But infections, so cellulitis, what would be the one-liner for cellulitis that would help us remember that as its own special thing? Ashley, go. Amy Elizabeth, oh my gosh, you can logged on! So everybody say hello to Amy Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hi.
So Ashley, will you start and do remember the one-liner that we did previously for cellulitis? What makes it special?
I don't remember it, but
It's strep and staph.
oh, yeah, strep
What's
and
that?
staph.
Strep and staph are the two major infection types that cause cellulitis in the skin, and that's right from our notes. Okay, so Ashley started. So see how I said a one-liner? Ashley gave us a one-liner or a key phrase that tells what cellulitis is from the notes. Kind of narrows us in on it. Addison, will you take contact dermatitis? Can you do that one and give us a one-liner for that one?
Yes, it is. Let me go back to it.
Addison's cheating and looking at her notes.
I am.
I'm teasing you. You're fine. Look at your notes. It's okay. Give us a one-liner for contact dermatitis.
It's the type 4 hypersensitivity.
Yeah, so type 4 hypersensitivity, it can progress to what?
Type 1.
Bam. Hallelujah. Okay, so pressure ulcers. So Hala, you did a great job of explaining pressure ulcers previously. Can you narrow that down to like one key phrase that we can all look to help us remember pressure ulcers and kind of what they are?
Pressure ulcer usually almost always happen to where the bony prominences are. And bony prominences are is not just from your below neck. There is one place that you can always get it and you won't see it because of the hair is back of your head.
Okay. So bony prominences, and the one area that we always want to check that's the secret killer is the back of the head. Would that be a good one-liner phrase for everybody to remember that?
Yep.
Okay, is that good? Okay, we didn't really talk about cancers tonight, did we?
No, we didn't, but it's totally obvious.
Okay, so we'll come back to those at another time. And if you want to, wink, wink, jump ahead and look over the cancers yourself so that when we get together, we can just quiz on it and move on. Is that fair?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so burns. So burns. So who wants to take a one-liner for first-degree burns? Go, Zakia. Give us a one-line statement. So what's one key thing that you remember from first-degree burns?
I don't remember.
So first-degree burns are caused how? What's the major thing that causes first-degree burns on almost everybody?
Sunburn.
Who said that? Amy Elizabeth, did you just say that?
Yeah.
Amy Elizabeth, ding, ding, ding. So sunburns would be the one-liner for first degree. What about second degree? What makes that one special? What's its special thing?
Blisters.
So blistering, and Ashley, are the blisters broken or are they still together?
They're still intact.
So still intact blisters would be second degree burns. What about third degree burns? What's that one going to be all about?
It's several layers of skin.
So say it again.
Several layers of skin.
So several layers of skin. Yep. So all the layers of skin from the top to the bottom down to the bone can be included in a 3rd-degree burn, and it can be destroyed in a 3rd-degree burn. So is that a wham bam? Thank you, ma'am. Quick, rapid, quick. Get through this chapter and kind of warm ourselves up mentally.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So is everybody cool? Any questions, comments, concerns, problems?
I'm not cool, but it's okay. Next time.
Okay, Zakia is definitely not cool. Amy Elizabeth, I'm so sorry it took us so long to get you on. So if you want to stay on for a minute, you and I can go through some more of these. But everybody else, if you guys want to kick out, you can kick out, okay? Paula's taking off. But I'll stay on for Amy Elizabeth. Is that cool? Okay, so we're gonna keep going. So Amy Elizabeth, really quickly. So the risk factors for integumentary system. Do you know any of the risk factors that we talked about in class?
No. We haven't. Sorry, my class. We're doing this tomorrow.
Oh my gosh! So you're getting ahead by doing study group with us.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want to do Unit 13, or do you want to go over Unit 11 stuff? What would you like to do?
I mean, anything helps. I mean, it's all review.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll let you. Like I said, you still have to take your exam, right?
Yeah.
And you still have to take your quiz. So again, I'm happy to do Unit 13, but I want to make sure that you get your Unit 4 exam stuff and you get your Unit 11 quiz stuff as the key thing for you. So do you want me to bring? Do you want me to bring that stuff up and we can go over that stuff really quick?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over Unit 11 stuff for you. Give me 1 second to bring this up, and then I'm going to bring up Tana's review sheet, and we're going to do a rapid fire one-liner review for you of that worksheet so that we can make sure we cover these topics and you get what you need for tomorrow. And where it's appropriate, I will try to focus you in on what I remember from the exam and the quizzes without cheating and giving you answers, right? And just straight up telling you what's on it. I'll try to focus you. Does that make sense?
And like I said, it's all review. It all helps.
Okay. Yeah, no, I want to make sure that you get what you need. So give me 1 second to bring this up, and we're just going to just kick the crap out of this. We're going to take care of our business. Is that cool?
Thank you.
Okay, good. I want to make sure you get what you need. And ladies, you're welcome to stay on, okay? So Ashley and Zakia. So can you guys see what I'm showing her? Unit 9 from – oh, shit. I just spilled my pop. Don't listen to me cuss. Don't listen to me cuss. Okay, let me make sure okay, so the screen is now showing Unit 9. So Amy Elizabeth. So in what is Addison's disease? In like one line, what's Addison's disease?
It's a hormonal imbalance. It's
yeah, and it's
too much.
So where is it located at? Is it in the cholinergic side or the adrenergic side?
Okay. I'm off, Chris.
Okay, have a good night, Zakia.
It's the adrenergic side, isn't it?
So Addison's and Cushing's live on the cholinergic side or the adrenal cortex side. And then pyochromocytoma lives on the adrenergic side. That's a tumor of the adrenergic side of the adrenal system.
Okay.
Okay. So Addison's is what?
I drew a good little reminder for Cushing.
Yeah, well, let's go through it. Let's walk through that. Let's go through Cushing's
I drew a reminder for it.
A big cow.
No, it's a buffalo because you have the buffalo, the moon face, and then the facial hair.
Sorry, well, walk me through it then. So what is Cushing's disease, and why would you have a buffalo drawn for that?
It's too little of the adrenergic hormones. So cortisol, aldosterone, and
you got it reversed. Cushing's is too much of the cholinergic hormones.
Oh yeah, because it's have an extra cushion of hormone.
Yep. So Addison's is I need to add hormones to want to be sexually active, and Cushing's is I have more than I need, so I have Cushing for the net exploitative that would be kind of inappropriate. That's how I remember those. I associate it with the sex hormones.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I have Cushing for the pushing, and Addison's is I need to add hormones to want to be sexually engaged. That's how I remember those. And that's how I do it. You can do it however you want. Okay, keep going. Explain to me Cushing's, and that should make Addison's more clear. Go.
So it's an increased glucose, increased salt, low potassium. They commonly have the buffalo hump, the moon face, acne, facial hair. And
You
in
start looking
females,
like a dude.
yeah, in females, you have basically like manliness.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
prednisone has a similar side effects as the disease.
Yes. Okay, so that's Cushing's. Go through Addison's. Tell us what Addison's is.
So that one is the opposite. So it has decreased glucose, decreased sodium, increased potassium, decreased libido, obviously,
Yep.
decreased weight, severe dehydration, bronze skin.
I think you just killed them all. I think you got them all.
I'll be done in just a minute. Sorry.
So Amy, so what are the adrenergic receptors called? Do you remember the adrenergic receptors?
Yes. The adrenergic receptors are A1, A2, B1, B2, and dopamine.
Okay, so do you want to go through exactly what they do, or do you know what they do?
I don't have it memorized, but I can try to.
Let's go through it then. If you don't have it memorized, let's go through it. So A1, what does A1 do?
So that one's the constricts. So it constricts the eyes.
Yep, eyes.
The digestive system. Well, it's the can't see, can't spit, can't pee, can't poop.
There you go. Move on. You got it. That's all you need to know. If you remember that, you'll be fine. So what are the cholinergic receptors?
That one controls. So it regulates and suppresses norepinephrine.
So yeah, so if the adrenergic side is I can't see, I can't see, I can't see, I can't spit, I can't pee, and I can't poop, then the cholinergic receptors turn those off. So nicotinic and muscarinic act in opposition to A1. So what does nicotinic do then? What does it turn back on from A1 that A1 is shut off?
It turns on the ability for them to do all that stuff.
Yeah, so what it does is the nicotinic relaxes and turns on the muscles of the digestive system. So it pulls blood from the skeletal muscles that are for fight or flight, and it brings it back to rest and digest and opens up and starts to relax and use the skeletal muscles of the GI system. Muscarinic does something else. So I've deactivated can't see, I've deactivated can't pee, and I've deactivated can't poop. Which one is still turned off of the four?
Can't spit.
I can't spit. Well, how do we spit? What's active to make us spit?
The glands.
So muscarinic turns the glands of the GI system back on. So nicotinic turns the muscles on of the rest and digest systems, and muscarinic turns the glands back on for digestion. So pancreas, small intestine, salivary, all that. Is that wham bam? Does that make sense now? So
yeah, it does.
whenever the adrenergic turns off, the cholinergic turns back on, and vice versa. The adrenergic, if it goes into fight or flight, shuts those back down. So muscarinic and nicotinic is turned down by A1 in order to draw blood out of those systems to be able to go fight or flight.
Oh, okay.
Is that clear as mud now?
Yeah, that actually helped tremendously.
Okay, that's why I'm helping you, because that's a quick down and dirty, no BS, just get to the point, right? Move on. Okay, so what's Dawn syndrome or Dawn phenomenon?
I do not know.
Okay, so Dawn phenomenon and Somogis go together. Those two go together. So I'm going to hit Ashley up. Ashley, do you know what Dawn phenomenon and Somogis is?
Is she still here?
Yeah. So Somogis is when your blood sugar drops all the way down. Is that right?
Yeah. When does that happen?
It basically just dives all the way down like in the middle of the night, and then by the time you wake up, it's shot back up.
So yeah, so Amy Elizabeth, so for you, Somoji's and Dawn syndrome. So the way that I do this to help you guys understand this is so at 6 o'clock at night when we put a patient to bed,
Mhm.
and at 2 in the morning we assess it, and at 6 o'clock in the morning we assess this. So let me give you an example. So we put a patient
Did
to
you say
bed.
at 2 in the morning too?
Yeah, 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning we check their blood sugar, right? So at 6 o'clock at night we put them to bed, and Mr. Jones, who has Somoji's syndrome or phenomenon, he has a blood sugar of 90 milligrams per deciliter at 6 o'clock. When we go and check him at 2 in the morning with Somoji's, his blood sugars drop to about 50 on its own, just because of his metabolism. His has dropped down to about 50. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, when we check him again, he's back up to 90 milligrams of 90 milligrams for blood sugar at 6 in the morning. That's Somoji's. So what happened at 2 o'clock in the morning? So he was at 90, he went to 50, and he went back up to 90 over the course of the evening. At 6, 2, and 6, it dropped down on its own, okay? Now, Dawn syndrome, the Dawn syndrome side, it's the same thing going on, but at Dawn syndrome, Mr. Jones, the same patient, but in this case, he doesn't have Somoji's, he's got Dawn phenomenon.
Mhm.
We put him to bed. He's got a blood glucose of 90 at 6 o'clock at night. He has a blood sugar of 90 at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he has a blood sugar of 90 at 6 o'clock in the morning again. So what's the difference between Somoji's and Dawn syndrome?
I mean, it's just one changes during the middle
Yeah,
of the night.
one drops down at the middle of the night. So Somoji's, they drop down at the middle of the night, and Dawn phenomenon, it stays the same all night. Now, let me ask you a question. If we have a patient who has Somoji's syndrome and we give them their insulin before they go to bed, now their insulin starts at 70 in the middle of the night. At 6 o'clock in the night, when we put them to bed, their starting blood glucose level is at 70. What's going to happen to it when they go to sleep? At 2 in the morning when we check them, what happened to them?
Isn't it still gonna drop?
It's going to drop down to 10, and at 10 blood glucose level, what are they now?
Oh, they're hypo.
They're hypoglycemic, so low now, they stop breathing.
Okay.
When you check them, they stop breathing. So for someone with Somoji's, what do we not want to do before we put them to bed?
Give them insulin.
We do not want to give them insulin, but someone who's in Dawn phenomenon, they start at 90, we give them their insulin before they go to bed, they drop to 70. What happens to them over the course of the evening?
It just progressively gets higher.
Yeah, they go from 70 to 74. So by 6 in the morning, they're at 81. They're fine, right? When we gave them their insulin, we dropped them down a good bit. So when they get up in the morning, we got some time to work with their insulin to keep them normal throughout the day, right? But someone in Somoji's, if we drop it before they go to bed, they die. They're dead before they wake up because they stop breathing. So that's the difference between Dawn and Somoji's. Are we good? Did that help you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Diabetes insipidus and SIADH go together. Do you currently know the difference between SIADH and diabetes insipidus? Well, let me ask you this question, and this will help you. So out of the glands in the endocrine system, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the thyroid, parathyroid, the adrenal gland, and the pancreas, which system or which major gland is SAIDH and DI, or diabetes insipidus, associated with? This may help you.
The pituitary?
It is. It's the pituitary, right? So as with all the different, if it's all the different glands, there is a hypersecretion or an elevated secretion, and there's a decreased secretion. DI and SIADH, which one is an elevated level of pituitary secretion of ADH?
So SIADH has more letters, so that's too much.
There it is. You got it. Okay, and then DI be decreased. So what does ADH do in the body?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
What does ADH do in the body? When it's released, what does it do? What's its function?
Antidiuretic.
Yeah.
It holds on to fluid.
Yeah, it tells the kidneys to do what?
Retain
Fluid. Okay, so if I have SAIDH, which is an elevated ADH, what's that one going to tell the kidneys to do?
It's going to tell it to retain as much
More
fluid.
fluid.
It's going to dilute all of the. It's going to dilute the blood.
So yeah, so hold on, we're going to get there, okay? We're going to get to that next, okay? So what's DI telling it to do? DI is a decreased level of ADH or an abnormally low level of ADH. So what is that going to do to the kidneys?
It's going to release all the fluid into the make urine.
Awesome, you got it, okay? So if SIADH is telling the body to hold on to urine, I mean to water, what's the urine going to look like in SIADH?
It's going to look hypotonic.
Well, it's going to be dark yellow. There's going to be not very much water present, and so all the other electrolytes and
Did you say an SIADH?
Yeah, in SIADH, the urine is going to be really, really dark.
Okay.
Because you're retaining water in the blood, right? So that water is coming out of the urine, and so the urine is going to be highly concentrated and very, very dark yellow. If that's the case on SIADH, what's going on in diabetes insipidus? What's the urine going to look like there?
Oh, I was thinking the opposite of. I was thinking what it was in the blood, not what it was in the urine.
No, that's the key thing here. You have to know what's going on in the urine.
So in the urine, it'll look really diluted. Diabetes insipidus will look really diluted.
It's going to be clear, right? The urine is clear, and in SIADH, the urine is dark yellow. Why do you think I'm starting with the color of urine first?
Because that's the first thing you're going to notice?
That's the first thing you're going to notice, and the patient's going to notice. The color of their urine and the volume of urine is going to be the first things that you notice, right? Okay. Also, if I can identify that the urine is dark or clear, it's going to have the exact opposite effect on the blood. So in SAIDH, I said the urine was what color?
It was dark.
It's dark. So that water is doing what to the blood? Is the blood going to be very viscous?
Diluting the blood.
So is the blood going to be hyperosmolar or increased water there? Or is it going to be low osmolarity, no water there?
It's gonna have a lot of water and low solutes.
It's gonna yep, high water, low solutes is high osmolarity. That's the way that the test is going to ask. It's going to use that kind of language. So if that's what's going on in SIADH, what's going on in what's going on in diabetes insipidus then? If the urine is clear, that means there's a lot of water in the urine. What's going on in diabetes insipidus?
The blood's going to be like hypertonic.
Yeah, the blood's going to be a lot of constituents and not a lot of water. So that's low osmolarity. There's not a lot of water present. Are we good?
Yes.
That help you understand that better?
Yes, it really did.
Okay, that's why we're doing this, because again, I'm looking for one-liner things, because diabetes insipidus and SAIDH is one of those topics that a lot of people in class are still totally out in the dark on. And now you're not. Because we started with what it did, right? What the component was, if it's elevated or depressed. And then we started with urine first. The color of urine is the key to understanding what's going on in the blood. Are we good?
Yes.
So on your test tomorrow, if you have a question about SAIDH or DI, you just start with the color of urine first and work backwards. And that will tell you what's going on in the blood. If you try to start with the blood like you did, how confusing it is if you start with the blood.
It'll be really confusing.
It was really confusing. Even right now, it was confusing until you started with urine. Don't ask me why I know that. The reason that I know that is because I was working with the blood at first too, like the rest of everybody else, and I went crazy until I figured out, oh, the urine's the key to understanding what the hell's going on in the blood. And then now I teach it to you guys or review it with you guys, urine first and then blood second, because for some reason we understand our own urine better. That just we've been peeing since we can remember, and it just, when we see it, we know, oh my gosh, my urine's clear, I'm great, or holy crap, my urine's really dark, I need to drink water, right? I mean, that makes sense. We're used to dealing with that, and so that makes more sense. And so then we can work backwards and say, okay, here's what's going on in the blood now, because we can't see our blood. Okay, we good?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Moving right along. You're doing great, by the way. Okay, diabetes mellitus type 1. What is diabetes mellitus type 1? Give me a one-liner. What's going on with diabetes type 1?
Type 1 is it's the alpha cells, isn't it?
It's the beta cells are being what?
Are being destroyed?
Yep. So is insulin going to be present in that person's blood?
No.
No.
Wait, no. Insulin is going to be present, and as well as ketone.
In diabetes type 1, the beta cells that produce insulin are physically destroyed. That patient's blood will not have insulin present because it's not physically being created by those beta cells. Now let's talk about type 2 diabetes. What's going on with type 2 diabetes? Is insulin present in type 2 diabetes?
Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry.
Keep going. You're fine. If you're not clear, just say I'm not clear, and we'll go through it again.
No, it's not that. It's just that I'm having, like, I'm not an auditory person. I have to like see it on paper.
No, you're okay. No, that's why I don't like about this. I don't like the online thing because I can't physically show you a map or draw a picture.
No.
It's really difficult
you're
to
good.
do that.
So diabetes 1 is the destruction of beta cells.
Yep.
And because the beta cells don't make insulin, there's not insulin in the blood.
Yep, it's not present anymore. They don't have it to do any work. It's just gone.
Okay.
Okay, that's type 1. So what's type 2?
Type 2 is they have the beta cells, but the cells become insulin resistant.
Excellent. The term that you're looking for is insulin resistant. That was awesome. Perfect one-liner. So type 1 is an autoimmune disease that destroys the beta cells, so insulin is just not present. Type 2, the beta cells are still present and producing insulin. It is the cells that are rejecting the insulin and not accepting it. So insulin and glucose will still be present in the blood of a type 2 diabetic. Excellent. Perfect. Okay, so you just talked about a syndrome called diabetic ketoacidosis, or DKA. You can look at your notes and your little picture, your cheat sheets. But what's going on in DKA? Can you explain that to me so I know that you know what's going on with it?
So, I'm not gonna look really quick, and I might have this completely backwards.
No, you go ahead, please.
So just correct me as I go, because I think I might have this completely backwards. But in diabetes mellitus 1, since they aren't producing the insulin, their cells can still accept. It can't accept glucose, so it goes through like lipolysis and breaking down protein, and that causes ketones. And then they have more ketones than they have. Okay, I'm looking on my notes.
No, that's why I'm not stopping you. You're actually, Amy Elizabeth, you're doing a great job of explaining that verbally. You're exactly right. So this is the way that I was explaining this to some other students. So you have a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a car. Do you drive it?
Yep.
What kind of fuel does it burn that you put into it?
Gas.
You put in unleaded 84 octane gas, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Can your car burn diesel fuel? Yes, it can.
No.
Is that the preferred fuel that your car engine likes?
Oh, it'll destroy my engine.
That's exactly what's happening in DKA. What's happening is because your body is being deprived of the unleaded gasoline or glucose, which is its primary fuel source, it starts looking for another fuel source. So it says, well, I'd love some unleaded gas in the case of your car. And in the case of your organs, they would love glucose, but they can't get it because the insulin is what introduces it to the engine, right? To the cells. If insulin isn't there, or the cells become resistant to the insulin, which opens the door to let the glucose in, they say, well, hell, we don't want to die. So what they do is they start looking for a different fuel source. They're like, well, I got this protein next to me, and I got this adipose tissue next to me. I know I can burn that stuff. It's not as productive or easy to use, but what the heck, I'll burn it so I don't die. So knowing that the engine's going to run not as well, knowing that the engine is going to have to be replaced sooner, aka the cells die quicker, have to be replaced faster, they burn that protein and that fat. And the byproducts of that protein and that fat are 1, ketones and 2, lactic acid. And it's brought on because of diabetes, which is a hyperglycemic condition. So the diabetes part is the elevated glucose. The ketones are because of protein digestion. And the acidosis part is the lactic acid that's created because the burning process of the fuel is not as efficient.
So hyperosmolar hyperglycemic state and DKA have a lot of overlap.
They do.
The only exception is HHS does not have acidosis or ketones.
It doesn't have acidosis and ketones. And why do you think that
DKA.
is? I'm sorry, HHS doesn't have acidosis and ketones present. Why do you think that is?
Because the cells are still able to, they're still able to use some of the insulin.
Yep, they're still able to accept some of that glucose into the cells as its primary fuel source. Now, let me ask you this question. For HHS, how many gallon tank does your car have on it?
I actually don't know.
So let's just say you have a Honda Civic. Let's just say your car is a Honda Civic, right? Mm-hmm. The average Honda Civic has a 12-gallon tank of gas, right? Mm-hmm. Just let's say that. So 2 gallons of that fuel tank can still be fueled and still be filled with the normal unleaded gasoline that it would normally use. The other 10 gallons is now being filled with diesel fuel. And we mix those 2 fuels up. HHS is where some of the fuel that the body still needs is coming from glucose. The other, it starts to recruit protein and fats, because what happens is it can't accept all its fuel as glucose. So it accepts what it can, and then where it becomes deficient to keep the cells alive, it starts to draw on other fuel sources. But because there's a glucose component still present, it keeps the ketoacidosis down. And so ketones are no longer present, but you still have a diminished output from those cells. They are still not producing as well and as a high capacity as they would be if glucose could be completely the only fuel source that they could get. And that's kind of what HHS is. Did that explain that? Is that so? You do teach back to me the difference between ketoacidosis and HHS, so I know you understand it. And you can use your notes if you need to.
Okay, so the difference between DKA and HHS is going to be that DKA is going to have ketones and acidosis, like when you take their levels, basically.
Yep,
those are going to be caused because there's no way for them to use, or because they're not producing any insulin.
Yep, the cells have stopped accepting any glucose as fuel. There's no glucose being used as fuel at that point.
But with HHS, the cells are just deficiently, like they're just abnormally not. They've become resistant to it, but it doesn't mean that they've completely moved off of glucose as the primary source.
You totally got it. That's it. You got it, Ashley or Amy. You got it. You totally got it. So in HHS, it's a diminished cell burning process of fuel. the glucose, but it's not been completely deprived of glucose. You totally got it. Good job.
Thank you.
So on test, that's what you're going to see. You're just going to see ketones present or not present. That tells you what it is. You got a basic understanding, and then just answer the question. Okay, so the next piece here is going to talk about the hypothalamus. What does the hypothalamus actually do in the endocrine system? What does it do?
It turns on. Well, I mean, it connects the neurological system to the endocrine system.
Yeah, so it's the control center, right? It's the top of the food chain.
Yes.
It's the top of that food chain. That's what it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we don't really have a lot of conditions in that one that are hyper or hypo. Does that make sense? In this section, how we learned it, we didn't really learn anything in those. We didn't learn hypo. We didn't learn hypothyroidism. We didn't learn hypothyroidism. So just know that the hypothalamus is the control center to the rest of the endocrine system. It secretes hormones to be able to do that, and there's key hormones that it produces that act pretty much. The only structure the hypothalamus really interacts with is which one?
The pituitary gland.
The pituitary is the primary thing that it responds, that it talks to. And it does a really good job of doing that. Okay, so let's talk about the next one. So metabolic syndrome is what we call pre-diabetes. It's indicators that tell you that someone's going to diabetes. Do you know the 5 areas that metabolic syndrome talks about?
So large waist size, cholesterol, good cholesterol, blood pressure, and fasting glucose.
Yep, glucose levels. That's it. You got it. So waist level, waist circumference, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, fasting blood sugar levels, and blood pressure. Do you know the exact values for those that drive those?
I have them here, but I don't have them memorized yet.
Okay, so you fire out what they are, and then I'm going to help you find a way to remember them all. I'm going to give you the keys to how I remember them without my notes, and then you can figure out which way works best for you. Is that fair?
So, yes, please. Thank you. So the large waist size is, first of all, it's abnormal fat deposits. And then men is 40-inch waist or higher. And then women is 35-inch waist or higher.
Awesome. Keep going.
Then that one I don't think I'll have trouble remembering. Cholesterol is high triglycerides of 150 milligrams.
Is that one different between men and women? Is that one different?
I don't have in my notes that it's different, but it doesn't mean it isn't.
So there are 2 values that you want to put together when you start. You want to put waist size and bad cholesterol together, or LDLs, because look at the number for waist size and men's bad cholesterol level. Can you see those both in front of you right now?
Oh.
What are you seeing when you say, oh? What are you seeing with men?
Is they're both 40.
They're both 40, right? So those are the same. What about women? What's going on with women's waist size, and what's going on with women's LDL?
Well, the waist size is smaller than the man's.
Okay.
But the LDL is larger.
Okay. So the way that I remember these is I put those 2 together, and I remember the men's waist size and the men's LDL is the same. Women's waist sizes are smaller, and women's LDL levels are higher than men's, and 40 is in the middle. 40 is my baseline. The other 3 numbers that you have to remember are the same for men and women. And that's it. That's how I remember them without having my notes and freaking out. So men's waist size is what?
40.
Women's waist size is what?
35.
Men's LDL is what?
40.
And women's HLDL is what?
50.
That's it. So now, what's the HDL number that you have to remember?
That was the HDL number.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's the other cholesterol number that you have to remember?
Oh, the triglycerides is 150.
Yeah. And it's the same for men and women, right? It's just 150. Okay, what's the blood pressure that you have to remember? There's the same for men and for women.
It's over 135 over 85?
Yep, 135 over 85, and that's for both men and women, right? They're both the same. There's no discriminator between gender. And then as for, what about blood glucose levels?
100.
It's 100 for both genders, right? So now
Yes.
put your notes away and regurgitate the 5 things, including the numbers of metabolic syndrome. And I think you'll be able to do it without your notes.
Okay, so the men's waist is 40, women's waist is 35.
Okay, perfect.
Men's HDL is 40, women's HDL is 50.
You're dead on target.
The triglycerides is 150. The blood pressure is 135 over 85.
Okay.
And the glucose is 100.
Awesome. Now let me give you a little cheat sheet that'll help you with one more number. What's women's HDL number?
The HDL number is 50.
Okay. What's the LDL number for both men and women?
Do you mean just the triglycerides?
Yeah, triglycerides. Yep.
It's 150.
So those match. 50 matches the 150 in the next number. So if I use the 40 for my first 2 baseline, then 35 and 50, and then I use the 50 to give me the 150, now I only have to remember blood pressure and glucose. And I don't have to remember any of the other ones because they walk me through.
You can go by 50. So the HDL is 50, the glucose is 100, and the triglycerides is 150.
Yeah, that's a great way to remember it too.
Okay.
So did that give you enough ways to remember, like how I set that up to not have to remember it all?
Well, I would have, because that was one of the last things on my, I have to figure out a way to remember these lists.
Okay.
So it's I would have just sat down and remembered them, but this was much easier.
Yeah, no, and that's what the study group thing does, right? When somebody comes with a good idea, or they remember something that Tana and Megan gave out as a mnemonic or whatever in class, that's what we do for each other. We help each other. Again, because some of this stuff that I'm teaching you or showing you, I didn't make this up. Hala made this up, or Zakia made this up, or Addison, you know what I mean? And then we just gleaned the best ideas that have helped everyone. And now you're getting the culmination of all that good stuff as we've gone through Unit 9, Unit 10, and Unit 11. Is that cool?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No, that's what it is. Okay, so parathyroid. What does the parathyroid do?
It regulates calcium from the blood to bones.
Yep, and here's the key thing. So if you can remember Unit 2 calcium as an electrolyte, you know what hyperparathyroid and hypoparathyroid do, with the exception of one piece of this, okay? And one piece only. In hyperparathyroidism, is that elevated levels of calcium in the blood, or is that decreased levels of calcium?
It's elevated levels of calcium in the blood.
It's elevated levels of calcium in the blood. Where is the body getting that calcium when it calls for it?
From the bones.
It's getting it from the bones, right? So now I have this elevated level of calcium in my bones. What's happening to the bones when I call for too much calcium too often?
They're becoming more brittle.
They're becoming brittle or osteoporotic, right? That's what we call that. Okay. Well, when that calcium is free floating in the blood and I don't really need it, where does it all end up at?
I don't know.
It flows down to the kidneys, right? Downstream, it's going to end up in the kidneys. Well, when I get elevated levels of calcium in my kidneys, what is the calcium going to want to do?
Accumulate?
It's going to accumulate into kidney stones, or the correct medical term is renal caniculi. Or renal caniculi or kidney stones. And then the kidney stones are going to form, and they're going to move down the ureters and cause damage. That's the outcomes of hyperparathyroidism. Okay, that's the one major piece of this that we haven't spent as much time focusing on that I wanted to make sure I got through to you. So remember Unit 2, the calcium responses. So like muscle weakness and tetany and Tchaikovsky's sign and all that stuff.
It's
you know all that.
It's the opposite of what you think it would be.
Yep.
Like
it's opposite. Yep.
Calmness.
It's opposite what you think it would be, and then that piece that I just explained to you, that in hyperparathyroidism, because the body's calling for too much calcium, you're going to have osteoporotic bones, which is characteristic of pathologic bone breaks, and then you're going to get renal caniculitis in your kidneys because all that excess calcium flows down to the kidneys. It collects and forms as renal caniculitis.
Okay.
Is that
I'm
helpful?
surprised that they, like, did we talk about that when we did the renal caniculitis?
We did. We talked about that in the lecture. We did talk about it, but it was like 20 seconds in a 4-hour lecture, right? I mean, that's how quickly Tana and Megan are moving through some of this stuff. And so if you're not really, really paying attention and reviewing it that regressively, it's so easy to get that lost. It's really easy to lose and forget all that stuff.
Well, I
Okay.
can I'm gonna let you go because I feel like I've kept you already way too long.
Well, no, I'm gonna jump ship and get some rest. I had to work tonight, but did you get what you needed? So my question to you is what time do you take the exam tomorrow?
I have it at 1 tomorrow.
Okay, so if you want and you want to do this, you just say, "Hey, meet me at the school for an hour before the exam, and I'll come in at 12, and I'll sit down with you face to face and go through this if you would like. But I will only do it if you want me to do that because I'm going to be on my way home from work anyway."
Okay. Well,
You just tell me what you want me to do.
I don't like I feel really bad taking up your time.
You're not, because this is reviewing for me for what? By going through this with you, what is it doing for me?
You're reviewing for the final.
I'm reviewing for the final too. So I'm not seeing it as, and I'm gonna go harder knowing I'm helping someone else than falling asleep at home in my bed after work, not helping people. Like I'm gonna go harder because you asked for my help, like a service learning thing for me, than it would be if I'm just doing it for myself. I'm a big helper. I want to help people. And that drives me more than just being smart. Like I want to be smart, but I'd much rather do it with someone else and help other people. And together we're gonna all grow and learn together.
Well, if you could, I would really appreciate if you could. But I'm down at Jordan. Is that okay?
Yeah, I live in Riverton, so I'm going to be out. I'm like 10 minutes from the campus.
Okay. If
In fact,
if it isn't out of your way, I would really appreciate it.
Okay, I will be at the school. I will be at the Jordan campus, and I'll be down on the first floor outside the testing center at 11:45 tomorrow. And I will spend an hour. That way, you have an hour with me before you go to the test. It'll give you 15 minutes to decompress, get a drink of water, use the restroom, get all your crap together, and you can go in and just kill this exam.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good, Amy. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, later. Bye.
Bye.